Hey all, so this is War 11 against NXS, Noxious Smoke, and got some good fights in here, but I do have to warn you ahead of time. This was just a tough one. I was busy basically all day Saturday, had family in from out of town. Obviously, it was Mother's Day in the US. There were some other things going on, and I was honestly probably a little more overwhelmed and a little more tired than I realized or admitted to myself. And you will see some of that come up. But first off, we have this fight with Odin. I've taken this to exact apocalypse before with Guardian, and basically you just slow play it. Play the node, keep getting to special ones. You'll notice that I hit his block a little bit at first to make it easier to push him over the first bar of power. But the idea here is just he's not going to kill us through block because Odin has an incredible amount of armor from that armor up. And Odin also hits nice and hard, and True Strike is going to ignore Apocalypse's natural armor, and he's going to go down. As you can see, we're making very good time here. It has been a full minute, so this is not the fastest fight in the world, but thanks to the regen boost, we just dropped to 99%, and he's half down. So we're on pace for this being, 3 minute, little bit less, kind of depends how the rhythm of it goes, but basically not needing to heal, right? Like, this is just very, very safe. I am parrying the first beam and dashing out of the last one. Honestly, you could just block all three and be fine. He's stunnable on this node, so you can just, like I said, block all three, then parry. You don't need to do anything remotely fancy. If you see an apocalypse here, bring somebody like Odin who can block for days, play the node. You notice I made one small mistake when I didn't need to, gave him a fury, but that's it. Fight's done. Oh, you know what? I went back and checked this while I was recording it. I completely missed that fights have gone back to 5 minutes and aren't 5 minutes and 30 seconds anymore. So that was actually only a 90-second fight. Absurdly clean with Odin. So we move on to the Spider-Ham, who I'm also going to be using Odin for. And if you haven't caught my recent video on how to fight Spider-Ham with anyone, I will be linking that in the description. But basically the idea here is when you fight Spider-Ham, you want to throw your special one as soon as you get it for most of his best counters. Odin hits very hard, lines up well against his small health pool, blocks well so he can bait heavies really easily without getting too punished, and has True Strike, so if things go awry, we can probably avoid his evade. But turns out between Energize and wanting to throw the special one right away, I don't think the evade ever comes up. Like I said, he has a fairly small health pool. We are getting our attack reduced pretty significantly by his taunt. But it's not really going to matter because our attack is so high anyway. He's just not going to last that long. So we do hit into his block, like I talked about in the video, because that is one of the best ways to bait out the special one. We take some brute force here because he is still Spider-Ham, and sometimes his AI is just rude. Go for that heavy there. It's not strictly necessary, especially with how much we're blocking, but I like having the Energize just to give us a little bit more freedom in getting back to the special one quickly. So it took a bit more on block there. It does add up a little bit, but we're also healing from willpower thanks to the taunt. Odin doesn't have any more fights after this. This amount of damage is perfectly manageable for not having to bring a dedicated Spider-Ham counter. We just use Odin because he's big and beefy and reliable as all heck. I love being able to bring him on these teams. And then we use our other pre-fight champion for an actual fight. I talked about this in my last war video, but knowing what your support champions can actually do on the path can really open up pathing, and this war, I think, very much supports that as well. So I've done this fight before with House of X. against Annihilus exactly here. I think last time it was a little bit worse because I did push him to a special 2 at one point, but we're getting willpower from the debuffs that do apply to us. We're kind of ignoring them though, because we don't need to dash back, which could potentially trigger the unstoppable, right? We have a chance to fail even that when he puts those stifles on us. But mainly we're just watching the timer here, trying to make sure we're not hitting into him when he can gain an armor up, because then he can go unstoppable and magnetism doesn't prevent that. But the minute we don't see the unstoppable, we can keep going. We bait out this special 1. Doesn't matter that we block it, because even though it does extra damage, we block fine. We get willpower from the armor breaks. This is just a very, very simple, safe fight. And even if you do push him to a special 2, it'll hurt a little bit. It's the only fight House of X is taking. Very safe. So let's talk about this next fight for a second. This is, as you can see, a rank 4 Omega Sentinel. Tigra's moveset does line up well against her. It's a very easy heavy counter. She can prevent the armor ups. There are things you can do to try and make sure that you proc as few armor ups as possible. You can throw in some mediums, some wake up intercepts to try and break up the chain of heavies. And that's important because Omega Sentinel is one of those characters where neutralize doesn't stop a buff caused by that hit. So if you throw a heavy, neutralize expires, and then you throw another heavy, therefore throwing 2 of the same basic attack in a row, that armor up will proc. Now, she's not unstoppable armor, so a few armor ups is not the end of the world, but 5 lets her auto block you, and then she parries you, puts a big incinerate on you, and things get very ugly very quickly. So it is extremely important not to get to 5 armors. And honestly, that can be a little bit tricky sometimes, because sometimes she'll just throw a full combo into your block, which can give her as many as 2 armors. She can dash out, she can dash right back in, gain another one. Like, 5 is not that hard to hit if the AI doesn't play nice. And so that's why I went and I turned on recoil, despite the fact that I don't do that very much. I used an advanced power back boost, despite my strong belief that Tigra does not need those and is even hampered by them for a lot of fights. But for this one, it made sense. So we get those 3 ruptures from the first heavy counter. See, there she just throws a random heavy. Her AI gets so weird. But we wait for her to come at us a little bit, because the AI lately loves dashing back and avoiding the first few hits of Tigra's special 2. So we just let our senses fade there for a second, letting her kind of come at us, so we knew we'd hit her with the whole thing, completely knocked that out. So then I had to wait for that Sasquatch to go down. But then it was open, and I came right in for this Black Panther. I didn't change my masteries. As you can see, I almost had the power back boost carry over, and this is where I just had a brain fart. We had, honestly, a terrible war. Like I have said before in my previous videos, for most of this season, despite the fact that our record has been much worse, our average attack bonus has actually been pretty even with what it was last season when we made top 3. Like, the averages have held, we just haven't had them in the right wars. These last couple, that has ceased to be true. We have given up far too many deaths, and this war in particular, I don't know if it was the holiday, I really don't know, but it seems like a perfect storm. Especially in BG3, we had a lot of deaths with rank 4 attackers. 2 fights we've taken before. It didn't make sense, but it felt like we couldn't hold back the storm. And several of them, 2 of them actually, happened almost immediately before I went in for my fights. I was worried about the Omega Sentinel fight. I think that's actually why I forgot to put on Mystic boosts, right? Like, even the fact that that one special 2 ended the Omega Sentinel fight, I still should have put on Mystic boosts. I should have had the power back. That was obviously part of the plan. I've been topping up on them for a reason. Loyalty is there for that. But I just forgot. And then I came in here and I saw that 1 second left and I went, oh, I should have gone even faster. I should have just hit fight. And then I closed out of this, and despite knowing it was gone, I hit fight without stopping to think further. And I really should have. Because when I turn on recoil, I don't normally run max willpower. And so I leak a pretty good chunk of health. And that's fine for burst fights, but if anything goes wrong, it starts to get worse. Now, I know you're supposed to do a double dash back for Black Panther's Heavy for it to be particularly safe. But I got hit because I didn't do that, and I'm not sure why. But because I didn't do that, I now feel like I don't have enough health to safely throw specials. I didn't have an invuln on, I didn't have an advanced power back boost on. Everything about the rhythm of this fight is wrong. I am dangerously low on health. I don't get any power back from that besides what I get from a few ruptures because I know that, or because I forgot to put on the boosts that I was planning on using here. And then I run into the falter there, and the fight is over. So that was a really stupid, avoidable death to a fight that I have taken before, to a character that I have soloed as a boss with Tigra, and there's really not much more going on here. There's just no good reason there. Like I said, I think I was more bothered by the extra deaths in the BG than I realized. I was more, just overwhelmed by everything that had happened on that day than I realized. And a lot of it was good, I want to be clear. My girlfriend actually graduated from law school, and so that is amazing, right? But it was just a really overwhelming day. And I want to be very clear, this is not an excuse. I'm not excusing the death. It is on me. I made the season worse. I let down the team with that. I'm just providing what I think were the reasons. And when I'm saying that I was more overwhelmed by the day than I realized, when I'm saying that I was more affected by those deaths than I realized, what I'm saying is I should have been more aware of my emotions. I should have been more honest with myself and realized that after the Omega Sentinel fight, despite going so well, spiked my heart rate. I had the other boosts up. I should have gone. I should have done something else. I should have just taken a minute and refreshed and really zoned in on the next fight and then gone in. And had I done that, I don't think we would have had this death here. We still definitely would have lost the war because, like I said, this was just a truly perfect storm of awfulness in BG3 especially. So we have things to talk about and fix in the off-season. The funny thing is that it's actually not out of the realm of possibility for us to make Masters even going into this last war with a 4-7 record. And that's in part because, our attack bonuses for the first part of the season were so solid. That's what's putting us in range. I'm not gonna agonize over it. I mean, the rewards for Platinum 1 are quite good, and this has been a rough season, and if that's where it lands us, I won't feel like there's anything unfair for that. We just have some stuff to fix, and I'm really sorry that I added to it for the Alliance this war by just not really being in touch with my own mental state. And so that's something that I'm going to try and watch a little better going forward. But this war in particular also brought me back to something that I've said before, something that other people have said before, and something that I will definitely say again, which is that I just really think that there should be a dedicated span of time in the Alliance War schedule for planning. Because feeling like you have to squeeze it in that, like, right at 2 p.m. Eastern, sometime in the next 2 to 3 hours, when things roll over, to make sure that people can move before they have to go to bed, because for some reason energy is still a thing in this game mode. I mean, the coordination's gotten easier, but it's still there. It's so much extra stress. And the fact that somebody has to do it, no matter what's going on, no matter what kind of holiday may be coming up, no matter what's going on in the real world, somebody has to do it, just has me thoroughly convinced that there should be an amount of time set aside for it, so that it's less of an imposition on the people who do it. It's open for more people to help, because this is ultimately a team sport, and I think a lot of people, in my alliance especially, would gladly help if the timing were more flexible. It's just a part of war that needs to change, I think. Because every time war has gotten more interesting, every time they've improved the mode, the planning load has increased. And at some point, it's just gonna break, because it's broken a lot of planners in the past. That's like the number one cause of alliance death at this level. It's like, well, we don't have enough planners anymore. And I think if they want to keep improving war, if they want to keep making it more interesting, more competitive, more interactive, just better, then they need to fix the planning problem. And I'm not saying that that's why I died. Not at all. I died because I made a couple overlapping stupid mistakes and didn't process how I was feeling properly. But it just all compounds, and I don't think I would feel like this right now if there was a planning period and things were a little more forgiving, just from a timing aspect. So I really hope that the design team listens to that going forward. I know they've heard this feedback. Hopefully they're able to do something with it. But I hope you guys enjoyed the fights. There were some really cool ones in here. I really, truly love being able to bring Odin to war and use him. So I'd like to end on that happy note. And I will see y'all next time for the last war of the season. Hopefully it's a good one. Until next time, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and take care.